Hey, good morning, Jonathan. First one here again.
Yeah. Morning.
Morning.
All right. On the operating system fundamentals thing, I'm not sure how to use disk copy.
Okay. Do I have that in there?
Yeah, one of the things is that I'm supposed to use disk copy to create a disk with all the EXEs from DOS.
Okay, fair enough. We can only do that if we set up the virtual, where we remember. I think I talked to you about virtual floppy drives. Did I do that or not? Anyway,
I keep forgetting I have to hold down the thing. Yes. Do I need to create a second one?
you could do that. You could do a second virtual, or you can actually disk copy. Well, if you actually had physical floppies, it's a little hard to do with a virtual, unfortunately. What you would do with a physical floppy would you stick in it, you type disk copy, A:/A:, in the middle of it, it would prompt you to remove the floppy and put in the other one. Now, unfortunately, with a virtual, I think it's a little clunky to do that. I'm not quite sure how you would. I think you can remove one. Each virtual floppy is a file, so I think you can remove one and put in another one. But I'm not going to worry if you can do that or not, because it's a little cumbersome to do it. But do you understand the concept of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I understand. I was looking at the thing. Just when I tried to do it, it kept on saying, like, well, you can't really copy it to the same disk. I'm like, damn it.
You actually can copy to the same disk if you're using a physical disk, because what will happen in the middle of it, it will prompt you to take it out and put in the other disk, because there were a lot of computers back in the days that only had one floppy drive.
Yeah.
So it made sense that you could do a disk copy to the same drive. You could also do a disk copy if you had two floppy drives, of course, to A to B, or if you're doing virtuals, you could create another virtual.
I think I have a B drive on this thing, actually. Let me check.
Yeah, I won't put that in the actual test, and if I do, I'll take it out because it's a little bit challenging to do that. Hey, Jacob, welcome. We missed you last time.
Yo, guys.
Yeah, so as far as that, yeah, these are the things where, Jonathan, where you have to be a little creative, which is kind of a good thing, because the more inventive you can be, as far as working with computers and then later on with computer networks, you know, the more different ways you can attack a problem. So it is kind of interesting to bring that up. Do you remember, Jacob, the old disk copy command?
Unfortunately, I do not.
You got a cold?
I'm not feeling well right now, yeah.
Bummer. Yeah. Good thing you're at home. Yeah.
Nothing I can really do about it right now.
Yeah, Jovan.
Also, I'm a little worried about formatting the C drive. I don't want to lose the DOS stuff.
Well, let me tell you, if you format it and you lose everything, you just launch another virtual. Is the beauty of it.
Fair enough.
One thing they do in class is if they mess it up, we just just install another virtual. So once you know how to do that, that should only take you a minute or two to bring up another virtual.
Yeah, I think I still have the zip drive or the zip file on my computer for it.
Yeah, you want to keep that file expanded out and just have it, you know, DOS virtual somewhere so that you can launch another copy of it. And I think on the way I did it on the server was I usually have a backup folder. So I have one that I never touch. And then I copy that backup one. Actually, the easy way to do it is wherever you have that virtual, is have another folder with a backup of it nearby in a backup folder, and then just overwrite the one you're using. So if it ever gets screwed up, just overwrite it with a good copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I kept the I zipped the thing off of the Google Drive, and I just have it sitting in my thing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that's the easy way to get around that. Oops, there's a bunch of people waiting to get in. Sorry to keep everybody waiting there. Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry to keep you all waiting. So we were just talking a little bit about the DOS. Jesus did his DOS test. Jesus, I've looked at most of it. Looks good. I will finish checking it later on this afternoon. Sorry, Giovanni, missed you. Okay, so I'll just go through who everybody's in here, since some people are new and some people are veterans. Giovanni, you're here. We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Giovanni, can you say something? He's on his phone, so. Giovanni is a veteran here. He's, we haven't seen him in a little while, but he's showing up. Jacob, wave. Jacob's a veteran here. What section are you on, Jacob? You're still muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm studying for the A+ and I'm going to take next week.
Okay. So Jacob is studying for the A+. Tell everybody what the A+ is, so they know.
It's a big test of pretty much general IT knowledge that you need to know for whatever it is you're going to be doing. A+ involves everything from how IP addresses work to how an iPhone works. It's a lot of stuff, but it's very useful.
Okay, and it also is an industry recognized certification. So it's not a school certification.
Yes, it's very important.
Yeah, it's one that's taken nationally and internationally. So when you get into this industry, it is kind of the certification that employers would expect that you would have. So once we go through all the exercises and we work on computers and we're knowledgeable, then we get to the point where Jacob's at and we prepare for our first certification exam. Mm-hmm. And the certification exam has to be done where, Jacob?
It has to be done on campus.
It has to be done on campus. It has to be done at an official certification testing center.
Oh. I'm sorry, I'm coughing so much.
Uh-oh.
Garbage.
Oh, Sean, sorry. Sorry, left Sean hanging there. Mm-hmm. So, Ryan, do you want to tell the new people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Ryan. I joined the program in February, I believe. And honestly, the distance learning thing has been tough, so I haven't progressed too awfully far. I'm in the computer repair section right now.
Okay, good. I don't want to put everybody on the spot, so I'm not going to go through and make everybody say something. But our new folks here are Jesus, Lucia, and Jonathan. And Sean just started, Sean, who we can't see or hear at the moment, started a couple weeks before them. Giovanni is a veteran, right? Giovanni, you're gonna can you figure out how to talk or message or something? And Xavier, can you say something, or are you just in the chat? Okay, we can hear you, Xavier. We hear a quick burst.
Really?
Yeah.
Did I cut out?
Yeah, you cut out a little bit, but there you go. We can hear you. Mm-hmm. And Xavier, you're in network section 3, right? I think.
No, 4.
4.
Taking the test tomorrow.
Oh, taking the test tomorrow. So yeah, Jesus did his test yesterday. Good job, Jesus. and he sent in these screenshots to me. Xavier is going to be doing that tomorrow in the network section. So it's good, moving right along. Noah, what have you been up to? You told me you're going to be here, good. So Noah, can you talk or can we hear you? Or put something in the chat. So anyway, one of the things I wanted to point out, especially for the people that have been here a while, what I'm going to do on at least on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to be open in the Zoom from 10 to 12. So anybody that's doesn't want to sit through a whole discussion with everybody, but has a question, you can always pop in later. And I'm talking about the people like in the A+ section or later on in the program. So for you beginning students, you want to be here in the beginning so we can spend more time. Also, I can open up the Zoom at other times for everybody, but I think it's going to work. If the Zoom is open from at least 10 to 12, and if somebody pops in at 12, then we're probably going to be open till 12:31. So don't be afraid. If you're later in the program and you're working on something and you just want to pop into the Zoom, I know Xavier, you did that right because you had last time because you had a specific question that we covered after we let everybody else go. So you're welcome to do that for anybody that is in the latter part of the program, and you're just anxious. You just want to get you know what you're doing, but you just want to get a specific question answered, or you want to demo something to me, or you want me to demo something to you. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the next section. First of all, Lucia, do you have any questions on the DOS? How are you doing on that?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I don't have any questions yet. I'm still reading the material and stuff like that.
Okay, Lucia, you look like a pro streamer there with that setup. Do we see you on Twitch or what?
Probably.
Probably. What's your game that you stream on Twitch? Oh, we're cutting out again. You got to hit your space bar.
WoW and COD.
WoW and what?
Call of Duty.
Oh, Call of Duty. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which Call of Duty?
The new one right now. Well, about to be old, but Modern Warfare right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm still on Black Ops 4. I gotta upgrade my game.
So do you want to tell everybody what your name is on Twitch so they can follow you if they want?
Sure. It's just Wild Fox.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To clarify, is it quotation mark just Wild Fox or Wild Fox?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so we want to follow her on Twitch. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So, all right. Let's cover a little bit about the next section, then the Windows section, which is kind of easier than, I think that's easier in DOS because when we get into Windows, we can look around and click on things. So we don't have to memorize commands so much here, but we have to kind of fiddle with it and figure out how to navigate our way around it. All righty, so let's do a screen share here. And I'm assuming everybody can see the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All righty. I had it open, but Okay, so after you're finished the DOS section, and we talked about that last time, that's the 5 chapters. It's going through the DOS exercises, and it's doing the performance test. So Jesus, now you would be the first one of the new people to move on to the Windows Fundamentals Section 1. Okay, so at the top of the screen up here, there's a few different exercises here. And these are the first ones I think you're going to do where you'll actually submit within Canvas. So let's take a click on the first one. Okay, so this will be referring to your book. Remember, you're starting off with the Core 2 book, and it's referring to, you have your book in front of you, it's referring to pages 9 to 11. Okay, and every once in a while in the book, you're going to run into these applying concepts. And they're fairly straightforward little exercises. This one is just basic signing into Windows and a few things like that. Oops, let me click. Sorry, Daniel, I forgot to admit you. Okay. All right, so I need to stand corrected on this one. This one says no submission required. Okay, so this particular one, there is not a submit button on it. So let me go back to the next one. Okay, quick. The next one down is quick access to File Explorer. And there should be a submit button. Let me change it to the student view, sorry. Okay, I'll go back to that. We'll go back to Windows Fundamentals 1. Oops, somebody wants something. Okay, so this one says complete steps 1 through 4, page 17 in the book. And down here, I have linked a couple of videos. The first one here is using the snipping tool. A lot of the exercises I will be asking you to make a snippet of the of what you're doing, and let me just show you that if you don't know it. And if it pops up, oops. Okay, let me pull it over. So this in the center of the screen is the snipping tool. So if I want to make a copy of what I've done, a screenshot, I just say new here, and then I grab an area of the screen that I want to show, and then I do a file, save as, give it a name, and then I have it in the file form. So then what I would do is to submit it, click up here on the blue button in the upper right. And then down here, I have different ways to submit it. Since I'm using the snipping tool, I'm going to do a file upload. Then I'll click here, choose the file, browse for it, and upload it. So that's how you would submit that type of assignment. So you just go through it. These ones all refer to the book. So that's how you'll submit these type of assignments. Here's a, let's see what this one is. Okay, again, an assignment from the book. This one is typed out here. I think I'd probably have you do the snipping tool again. Again, the blue button over on the right, submit assignment. And that's how you'll submit that one. You'll see a little icon when you click, when you go to your grades, you'll see a little icon showing that you have submitted it. If it's one of these assignments, then I have to grade it. So you'll see a little icon on your grade sheet until it's actually graded. Okay, the next thing down here is the LinkedIn Learning. And each of you should have an account for this. If you don't, let me know. So there are LinkedIn Learning exercises for Windows 7 and Windows 10. And let me bring up and log into LinkedIn. Has everybody been able to set up a LinkedIn Learning account? Because it can be a little bit tricky at first.
I was able to get mine up.
I don't think I have one.
Okay. Did I send you an invite to it or not?
I know.
Okay. So Lucia, I'll send you an invite to it. And Jonathan, did you get an invite or not?
I did, and I should have LinkedIn Learning already set up for me.
Okay. And Sean, did you get an invite to it? Okay. So when you're in LinkedIn, on the upper right side, there is a learning thing right here. And if you've set it up properly, you'll click into it. If you haven't set it up properly, it will say something like it's giving you a 30-day free trial.
I did, by the way.
You did, okay. Okay, looks like I've logged in as a principal, so. Okay, I'm under the wrong account at the moment, but anyway. Let's take a look at the Windows 7 one. Actually, let's take a look at the Windows 10 training. And the one I'm going to have you do is the Windows 10 Essential training. And let's do the latest one. It looks like they add them every once in a while. There's a new version of the Essentials training. And that's because Windows 10 kind of changes every once in a while. Every once in a while, there is a major update to Windows 10. So the Windows 10 that came out in 2015 doesn't look exactly like the latest updated version of Windows 10. So you will see some slight variations in it. You'll see added features and so forth. In fact, here's an interesting one right here where it says Windows 10 new features. So implying that, of course, there are new features along the way. Mm-hmm. So, okay, there is also one new features here. So watch the Essentials one, and then if there are any of the other new ones, especially something like this would probably be short and interesting. New features. Actually, this is an old one, 2015. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, okay. So this one, the May 2020 is the recent one that we want to watch. Okay. So, okay. So Lucia, I will send you an invite to the LinkedIn Learning. Now, do we all understand the concept basically of setting up a virtual machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You too, Lucia?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
you had mentioned it last time.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to go to It is in the Google Drive, but we're going to go out to the internet to look for VirtualBox. I'm going to click on downloads here. So I do have this in the Google Drive, but if you want to see that you can actually get it out on the internet, and this is a free software to use to create virtual machines. And you can
don't we need VMware for the virtual machine that we're using?
Yeah, we're using a VMware for the DOS virtual machines. For the rest of them, we can use VMware if you like, if you really like VMware, or we can use VirtualBox. Now, the book generally refers to using VirtualBox. That's why I'm pointing to that. But
okay.
yeah, I generally prefer using VMware out of preference, but they're both very similar. They both do the same job. And we will be talking about, in the network section, a third virtualization software, which is what, Jacob? Or Xavier, tell me.
Sorry, what?
What is the other virtualization software that we use besides VMware and VirtualBox?
Is it Hyper-V?
Yeah, Hyper-V. And what's different about Hyper-V?
I think it's the one. Is it exclusive to Intel or no?
No, not Intel, somebody else.
Sorry.
It's exclusive to Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
Right.
So the difference with Hyper-V, it's built into many of the Microsoft operating systems. So which ones is it built into?
Windows.
Not every version of Windows.
Pro and Enterprise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also Server 2012 and 2016. So we will also be using it on the server end as well. Mm-hmm. So yes, we will generally be using VirtualBox. We can also use VMware, as Jonathan has been using. And we will also use Hyper-V, and all of them kind of have their... Hyper-V, is the Microsoft one, is probably the most different to use out of the three. VMware and VirtualBox are very much the same. And, let's see if I can find some pictures. Back a bit. So over on the right here, this is what it'll look like with VirtualBox. And on the very left side right here, these are the installed operating systems. So this would be one physical computer, and what this person that set this up has done has put on quite a few different operating systems. Now, if you look at these, you'll see none of these are actually Windows. Well, there is one Windows right there, sorry. But you can run in the virtual environment, you can run Windows. You can run Windows 7, Windows 10, the Windows Server operating systems. In fact, this one here is Windows 2016 Server. And you can also run the Linux operating systems. So for people that like to play with Linux, this is a convenient way to do it because you don't have to have another computer to install it. It's also, in our case, it's convenient for installing multiple Windows operating systems. So when we get into the network, we will be installing several Windows operating systems on the computer. So that's important because we want to simulate a network. Now, you'll notice on here as well that some of them say powered off and some of them say powered on, or running, excuse me. So you can have a lot of your virtual operating system standing by being ready to use, but actually not turning them on. So we might do this because we want to play with a lot of operating systems, but we may not run them all. And what would be the reason for not running them all?
And not enough memory?
Yeah, not enough memory, not enough computing power. So the more of them you're running, the more memory, the more computing power you will be using up. Mm-hmm. And on here, within the this first one right up here must be the properties of the first virtual operating system. In this case, it's a Linux one called Ubuntu 18, and they've assigned 4096 megabytes. What is 4096 megabytes also known as, and gigabytes?
4 gigs.
4 gig. All right, Daniel, you raised your hand. Daniel, you have a question, or you are answering that?
No, I was just trying out that feature, but I was going to answer, but just trying
Okay, good. All right. I saw your hand raised, yeah, or saw the sign for your hand raised. So 4096, why is it 4096 and not 4000?
because each gig is 1024 bits.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this last time. Each gig is 1024 meg.
Yeah, my bad.
Right. And why is it 1024 and not 1000?
Because of the binary.
Because of the binary, exactly. Because of the binary. We talked a little bit about that last time. It's a little hard to explain, but it is because the binary numbers. Binary numbers, think of them in terms of even numbers that are doubled. Uh-oh. Max is here. Hey, Max, you trying to get into the Zoom meeting? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, appreciate that. Appreciate you letting me know. Okay. All right. So are you going to let us know when you're ready to come back? Okay. All right. Appreciate you calling me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for calling. Bye. Okay. That's one of our students that couldn't make it into the Zoom meeting. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan has played with the other one, VMware, a little bit. I think I have some videos on this, or I'll link some videos on how to use. Yeah, I think I've created a few videos on how to install your Windows 7 into VirtualBox. It's also talked about within the book. So as we were saying, if you go crazy like this and install a lot of operating systems, you don't have to run them all at the same time. But the nice thing about this is when we get into the network section, when we get in the network section, we're going to need to run at least 2 or more computers to simulate a network. So the beauty is that we can do that on one computer. In fact, when we're out working in the field and we have problems, where we have to figure out how to set up different combinations of computers on a network, we can do it on our let's say our laptop or something like that by using a virtual machine manager like VirtualBox or VMware. So it's very handy. You can set up a lot of computers, set up a lot of different labs and so forth. Can you install the, Ryan, can you install the Mac operating system on here? Actually, I should probably ask Daniel, can you install the Mac operating system here on VMware, on VirtualBox?
I think it's like super difficult, if at all possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of, there's no definitive answer on that. Officially, you cannot, unfortunately, install the Mac operating system. Apple just decided to not allow you to do it. However, as Daniel said, it's difficult is because, of course, people have found ways to make that happen. Now, the other way around, if you do have a Macintosh computer, there is a Macintosh version of VirtualBox. So with that, you can actually install Windows in a virtual machine on your Mac. And that, yes, let's see, are you going to talk? Okay, all right. That is a little different from the Mac Boot Camp, where you can install 2 operating systems and run one at a time. Which I should mention here, the other alternative for running multiple operating systems on your computer, we call dual booting, where you boot to one operating system and if you want to run the other operating system, you boot to that. So if I were running Windows 7 and Windows 10, I could set it up in a dual boot where I booted to Windows 7, then I would shut it down, and if I wanted to go to Windows 10, boot it up to Windows 10. So that is what we call a dual boot. Now, when I say dual boot, we could actually do more than 2. We could do 3, 4, 5. But the limitation is we could only run one of the operating systems at a time. We'd have to shut it down, bring the other one up. So that is different from a virtualization. With virtualization here, with VirtualBox or VMware, we can run the operating systems at the same time. And as I've said, this is what we want to do if we're setting up a network lab. We want to run multiple ones together so that we can get into setting them up, having them communicate with each other. And when we get into that, we will learn about the protocol, the TCP/IP protocol, the internet protocol that we use to get computers to communicate with each other. Okay, so let's go back. Stop me if there are any questions or if there is other topics that you need me to cover. Okay. So just like the DOS section, we have exercises for the Windows 7 as well. And you should have been given the little book, the Windows 7 companion book. I should have that. So you'll go through here, install Windows. Now, one of the differences between DOS and Windows is we have things like firewalls to work with now. Jesus, do you know the purpose of a firewall?
I think it's to just sort of prevent unwanted activity back and forth.
Right, exactly. So to block people from getting either into your network or your personal computer. Now, there are 2 different types, 2 different categories of firewall I'll talk about here. One of them is typically a box you'll buy. It may be like your little router at home, or it may be some type of box like that you put at the edge of your network, at the perimeter of your network. So it acts as a firewall to everything that's connected inside of your network. So if you have 3 or 4 computers in your network, an Xbox and phones and things that connect to the network. That firewall would block everything at the, what we'd say is the edge of your network. Now, what Windows is doing here is a application firewall. It's a firewall running directly on your computer. So when it comes to security, we want to have layers of protection. You know, the more firewalls and the more things we can have that look for intruders or block intruders on your network, you know, the more safety we have. So the Windows firewall here is running on your actual Windows operating system. Now, there are also third-party ones that you can install. A lot of your antivirus programs nowadays are not just antivirus, they're built-in firewall and other features. Now, to keep in mind with antivirus and firewalls, on your actual computer, you don't want to run multiple ones. And why is that, Ryan? They're still muted.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I said, why do we typically not want to run multiple antivirus and firewalls on your computer, on your Windows 10 or Windows 7 computer? I'm gonna have to turn everybody's mute off.
Sorry.
All right.
I remember reading about that. It's a little fuzzy though.
It is a little fuzzy. I wasn't looking for anything super.
Something about them competing with each other, or?
Yes, they would kind of fight with each other because they're doing things at a fairly low level within your operating system, and things operate at a much lower level. You really can't have multiple applications doing that. They're definitely going to conflict with each other. So if you run a program, let's say Norton 360 or something like that, that is an antivirus and firewall, what it's going to do is ask you to turn off your Windows antivirus and firewall so that you're running that one instead. Now, I get confused every once in a while. A student will be doing a network setup, and and I'll be sitting with them, and I say, you do this, this, and this, and it works, right? Well, when I'm explaining it to them, I'm explaining it with the default setup, running a Windows firewall and the Windows antivirus. What ends up tricking me and tricking others is they've installed a third-party antivirus firewall, and I didn't look for that. And what happens now is the things you do, the things you set up your computers to communicate with each other, and you've got this different firewall blocking things. So what we have to keep in mind there is once you install a third-party one, you've got to look for that and look through its particular settings as far as how that firewall is working. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. If you're running the Windows firewall, we go through the exercises and we turn it on and off and so forth, and we know where to look for it. If you have a third-party one in there, then the settings may be a little bit different, and they may be more likely in a different spot. So if you're doing your exercises and all of a sudden one computer cannot talk to the other one, we always look for the firewall settings. And if it's not the Windows firewall settings, then it's some third-party firewall that's running on your computer. The Windows Base Experience Score, this was kind of a cute thing in Windows 7 that has been dropped out of Windows 10. It gives your machine a rating from, I think, 1 to 7, and Windows has since dropped that feature. I thought at the time it was a good idea for people that didn't know a lot about computers, because then software providers could say, you know, this game works if your computer ranks at a 5 or better, but it wasn't that useful. So now we go back to, you know, you want to run this game, you need a Core i5 minimum, or you need, you know, this amount of RAM and so forth. So we get back to that. Now, create an E drive and half the remaining space on your hard drive. This goes into the disk management. And let me bring that up. So I'm going to go to the control panel. And I'm going to go to the administrative tools. Now, we talked about chopping up a drive a bit with the disk part, the command line command, but there's also a graphical way to do it. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, doesn't want to get this bigger. Okay, so
Hey, Brian, I was going to ask a question about.
sure, go ahead while I'm futzing around here.
Yeah, the difference between antivirus and like a malware scanner, or is there a difference?
You know, technically they're kind of synonymous. The only one I kind of would give a real different category would be a rootkit. And Dan, you want to explain what a rootkit is, since you're the Linux guy?
If I remember correctly, it's like a malware program, but that stores itself in the BIOS, so that way it can't be scanned by like antivirus, since it's before you.
Right, not the BIOS, but close, the kernel.
The kernel, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The kernel, the core part of your operating system. And a rootkit is much harder to get rid of. So traditional malware are viruses and worms and things like that. So malware is the basic category of your different viruses. And then a rootkit is sort of a very special type of virus that is much more difficult to get rid of. I'm not finding it there. Let me just type it in. Disk. Disk management. Okay. For some reason I'm not seeing it on my machine, but I'll bring up a picture of it.
That one that came up.
This is.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I was saying when you type that in, it showed up. It just didn't show up as disk management. It says create partition or.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Screen. Yeah.
We do that again then. Yeah, as I said.
Then you put management.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you type in create, there it is. Oh, if you type in create, there you go. It'll come up.
All right. Yeah, as I said, they keep changing Windows 10 around a little bit. What they're doing, and I think the reason this happens is traditionally we have went to the control panel. Now where is Windows 10 moving everything to now?
The settings.
Settings, yeah. So you'll find that Windows 10 right now is kind of in the middle of a transition, taking everything from the control panel to going to settings. Now, why they're doing that, don't ask me, but they're doing that.
Annoy people.
Annoy people. To me, I always say that they're making it more Mac-like. It looks a little bit more like the Mac when you go into settings. It looks a little less techy, a little more friendly for newer users, and a little more inconvenient for people that have been doing it for quite a long time. So anyway, we talked about disk part. This is the graphical equivalent of disk part. And this is in Windows, and this is disk management. So this is where we've got the partitions. This is where we've got the C drive. Now my DVD is a D drive here, but I could change this. I can go through and shrink volume. I can't extend it because I've used the entire drive at the moment, but I could shrink it down. Let's say I wanted to make a D drive here. So the exercise it's probably going to ask you to do is create different partitions. So I can shrink it. And again, you know, this is where it gets a little confusing. Sometimes the term partition is used, sometimes the term volume is used. And I'm not sure why they end up doing that, but it is what it is. So I will end up using, nowadays I will end up using partition volume, which is interesting here. Look, it says mark partition as active, shrink volume. So I don't think even Microsoft can be consistent on their terminology anymore. So I think for sake of discussion, we're just going to say a volume and a partition are the same. It used to be, you know, I talk a little bit about using a MBR, it's a partition, and a GUID partition table, GPT, it was a volume. While that's fairly true, I think they're not even following that naming convention anymore. Over here at the very beginning right here on the left, it says disk 0. Now, one of the misconceptions when people put in a hard drive that they automatically assume when they put in a physical drive, it's a C drive. The way it's designated physically is it's disk 0. The next one will be disk 1, etc. Computers typically count from 0, not from 1. So the physical drive is disk 0. It's when you partition it, when we talked about partitioning it is when it's getting the ability to have a letter. So by partitioning and then formatting, it assigns, the operating system assigns a letter. The disk 0 is a hardware thing. This is what the hardware and BIOS are seeing it as disk 0. We've got a couple other partitions on here. I think we mentioned a little bit about the BCD, and don't ask me what it stands for, it slipped my mind. But that is the boot partition. And we talked a little bit about using the BCD edit and using a graphical version of the BCD editor. But that's here, that's the boot. So that is the boot partition. So from Windows Vista on, they started using a boot partition. Prior to that, if you were working with the older Windows XP 2000, they didn't have that hidden. And this, you notice this is a partition without a drive letter. So there is no letter to that. That's essentially a hidden partition. So when you go into your file explorer, you will not see this. You only see these hidden type of things within your disk management. So that's where they exist. There's also this recovery partition over here. Now, if you have something like a Dell or HP or one of the major manufacturers, you may see a lot of other partition, little tiny hidden partitions in there as well. I think we may have mentioned that last time. Mm-hmm. Also, remember we had a question about the file system for a DVD? And I think we all said we didn't know what a UDF is. That is the file system for a DVD. The normal file system that we're using is the NT file system, NTFS. What was the predecessor to the NTFS?
FAT32.
FAT32, so the file allocation table, FAT32. Do we still use the FAT32?
No, at least not for your main operating and newer operating systems.
Okay, where might we use it?
You're trying to make something compatible with other operating systems, they might both still recognize it.
Right, and what's a device that we might move between operating systems?
The device, like, I'm not sure.
What's a portable device that we might move between operating systems?
USB.
A USB flash drive, right? So we might still use FAT32 for a flash drive. There is also another flash format, flash drives that use, I forget what it is, XFS or something like that. One of the things with NTFS, for very small drives, it's not that efficient. So for a small flash drive, we might use FAT32. Also, if we were using that flash drive and we were moving it between Windows, Linux, and Mac, we might use FAT32 because FAT32 would be the most compatible between those three operating systems. If you take an NTFS drive and you put it in a Mac or a Linux machine, what happens?
I think it can read it, but maybe it won't. I don't really remember.
Okay, it can read it, but it can't write to it. Unless they've changed that recently. Okay, so newer versions of Mac and Linux can actually read the NTFS file system, but last I checked, they still can't write to it. Maybe that's changed this week, but so by using NTFS, you can put it in other ones, but you can't read or write. Now, one of the things that I've done in the past, people have come to me with a big external USB hard drive and said, make it FAT32. Now, the problem with that is, and I can't remember what the limit is, but the size of the partition is fairly small. So if somebody comes with a 2 terabyte USB flash drive and says, make it FAT32, they end up with a lot of partitions on there because you can't make these large partitions with FAT32. So that's why I say it's generally use it on a small drive. I think there are third-party tools that will let you make bigger partitions with FAT32 if you actually needed to do that. But generally, we're using NTFS when we have large ones. Now, we have there is about a 2 terabyte limit. What creates that limit of only being able to partition at about 2.1 terabytes on your hard drive? Until recently, that wasn't a problem, right? But now that you have 4, 6, 8, 10 terabyte hard drives, you may want to make a bigger than 2 terabyte partition.
I'm just gonna guess and say a master boot record.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, kind of, yeah. Yeah, we have to do a GPT, and also it is a limitation of the BIOS. So if we're going to run more than 2.1 terabytes, we have to go from BIOS to what?
UEFI.
Yeah, to UEFI. So UEFI will fix that problem of having being limited. Well, I say limited, right? Before that was pretty big, but being limited to 2.1 terabytes on a partition. Now, of course, in the BIOS, you can make multiple 2 terabyte partitions on the drive if the drive's bigger, but you couldn't make a single partition on the drive bigger than 2 terabytes. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is the Windows equivalent of this part. There is another partitioning area that you'll run into, and that's during the installation of Windows. And it's more of a blue screen, it's less graphical than this, but as you install your Windows operating system, you also have the choice at that time whether you want to make a single partition or multiple partitions. And of course, if you just click through and don't tell it anything, then it's going to create the single, I say a single partition, which is not entirely true. It's going to create this single C partition, but it's still going to create this reserved boot partition. You don't, during the installation, it creates this, you don't tell it to create that particular partition. It just actually does it as part of the installation. So any questions on that? We all got that down. So like I said, when you're installing Windows 7, Windows 10, there is part of the installation where it will ask you how big you want to make the partition. And I think in the exercises, I tell you not to take the entire drive. Daniel?
What is the recovery partition for? Is that for the recovery environment? Like the little, like, you know, when it crashes?
No, I believe it is. And I'm trying to think how that got put on there. You know, Windows keeps sneaking these little partitions in, you know.
Yeah.
First they just had the boot partition, and now they've got this other one. And it's probably one of the updates to Windows that did that. You know, they sneak in so many little changes. Like I said, Windows 10, you know, came out 2015, but it's made a number of changes over the years. Now, the interesting thing they did when Microsoft came out with Windows 10, they literally said they're going to stick with Windows 10. Remember before that we had XP, Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8. Well, when they went to 10, of course they skipped 9. they said, that's it. We're always going to be with 10. So as a result, you know, some of these some of these newer versions of Windows 10 probably in the past would have been called Windows 11 and 12. So it gets a little bit, you know, easier to lose track of the changes in there. Maybe Microsoft just wants to keep sneaking in changes. Maybe that's their purpose or something.
It's actually funny, that particular partition I remember, the only reason I remember this is because it happened to me. Apparently, I remember getting a small partition like that at some point, and it somehow freaked out my hard drive and thought it was essentially almost full because of that particular partition. But it happened in like rare cases, but I just found it funny. I remember that specifically.
Yeah, that's why people are, especially when you're in a company and you've got, you know, hundreds of computers. That's why as a computer administrator, you know, you'll often be nervous about a big Windows update because maybe you have some computers that have some kind of setup to them that Windows hasn't anticipated and causes some kind of strange problem. So that does happen. Yeah, so oftentimes as admins, it may hold off doing the updates for a little while to find out if there's any problems, because you'd hate to update, you know, 100 computers in your, let's say, your company, and find they all crash or have some kind of little quirky problem with them. So yeah, and inevitably that will happen to, you know, a computer or two. So that keeps you busy, right? So just expect the unexpected there. Now down at the bottom here, I don't know if you see down here at the very bottom of the box, it has a little black box that says unallocated and a little blue one that says primary partition. If I had an extended box, an extended partition, there would be another little code over here. I think it's like a light blue, and it would say extended partition. Or actually, I think it's green. So we did talk about when you're using a master boot record, you can create 4 primary partitions. So if I had room on here, I could create up to 4 partitions. So if I shrunk down my C drive, I could create up to 4 primary partitions on there. And you might ask why? Well, it's just because, you know, I can, right? And that wouldn't count the little hidden partition. So 4 primary partitions, when I say that, I mean 4 partitions that you'd actually assign drive letters to. So there could be C, D, E, and F. Oh, if I assigned another drive letter here, what letter would it get? So if I had space to create another primary partition, what letter would it get?
E?
It would get E, yeah. Remember we had a question where if you had multiple, if you had a second primary and your first one had C, D, and E, what would the next primary, if you had another physical drive? Remember, we determined that it would actually take the D from the other drive, because the primary partitions grab the drive letters first. If it's a primary partition on another physical drive, it will take that drive letter. So sometimes you see the drive letters get jumbled around. So, you know, cutting a lot of drive letters can be confusing. What I sometimes like to do on here is maybe make a C drive and a D drive on the D drive to keep your data and things like that. So if you ever have to reinstall your operating system, the data is kept separate. Although ideally it's better to have another physical drive, would be even better. We used to talk a bit about the page file. You see on here, it says this is the boot, the page file, crash dump, and primary partition. Does anybody know what the page file is? Come on,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Daniel, you're gonna know.
Yeah, it's the a specified size of your hard drive that your computer is using as memory instead of storage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also that dreaded V name, right? The virtual memory. I know we use virtual hard drives, virtual this, virtual that. Virtual memory. Virtual in this case meaning it's not real memory. It is the hard drive pretending to be memory. So why would we want virtual memory?
Probably to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because we have a finite number of RAM in your computer. Lucia, you said you had 16 gig. Daniel, I think you said you had 16 gig in your machine, right?
Yeah, this one's 16, the other one's like 32.
Oh, wow. Okay. And Jacob, how much RAM you have in yours?
I have 16 as well. That's typically standard, I think, nowadays for most people building computers.
Okay. And Jonathan, do you know how much RAM you have in your computer? Anyway, that's a finite amount of RAM. So if your programs used all 16 or whatever, 32 or whatever you have, and it needed more, well, it would crash or blue screen or something. It would lock up. So we don't want that to happen. So effectively, we create a reserve by using the hard drive to act as memory. So we call that our virtual memory. And let me go back into the control panel. I think I'm going to ask you to change in the exercises to change the size of the virtual memory. And
so would the virtual memory be slower than the regular memory?
Yes, definitely would be slower than the virtual memory. So yeah, that is the trade-off. That is the downside of using virtual memory. And it looks like they have moved it now into, oh, computer management. Sorry, yeah, so the downside of it, because it's on the hard drive, it is, it's actually going to be slower. And oh, forgetting where it's tucked away somewhere.
You're looking for the page file?
Yeah, tell me where the page file is. I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
It's in the view advanced.
Oh, they moved it. Okay. View.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would be under system.
It would be under
advanced system settings. Yeah. There. I don't know. Yeah, it probably is though.
System configuration.
What I personally always do is
okay, tell me how you get to, because they've moved it now.
I personally always type in view advanced system settings, but I know under control panel, there's one that says systems, you know, the Windows 7 control panel.
Yeah.
And system under system, you can get to it, but if you put view advanced, it'll come up.
Oh, you know what? I'm in administrative tools at the moment. Sorry. Okay, that's why I'm not seeing it. I jumped ahead. Okay, there we go. I'm fooling myself. So it's advanced. Yeah. So under the control panel, like Daniel said, under system, if I listen to him, advanced settings. Advanced settings, I bring up this little system properties page. And then it is, you see there's multiple tabs under here. It is the advanced tab.
It's right on performance, I believe.
Right, and the way you remember this is virtual memory has to do with the performance of your computer. Okay, and in fact, it says in here at the very end of virtual memory. So your page file is a physical file that allows you to create a virtual memory. And virtual memory is just a space on your hard drive acting like RAM. So RAM is just a place to put things in, put files and things in there, instructions and so forth. And in the RAM, it's solid state. There's no moving parts, so it's moving very fast. On your hard drive, it's on a moving hard drive, so it's running slower. So it's only a backup to your actual real RAM in your computer. But since you only have a finite amount of RAM on your computer, Windows likes to have some virtual memory as well to put things. So I click on settings here, and again, I go to advanced, and then I come down here. So it's quite a few steps to get to it.
Quick question. Just because like what you just said about the, about it being because it's mechanical that it's slower. If you're on a solid state, if you're actually on a solid state drive, you're still gonna get increased speeds on your virtual memory compared to a hard drive. Not compared to like actual memory, but compared to the hard drive on an a solid state, it's gonna be faster, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was hoping somebody would. Thanks for that. Yes, you're gonna get better performance on an SSD. Also, we used to say, we don't say it so much anymore, you'd also get better performance by putting it to another hard drive. So if you have multiple hard drives, moving the page file, the virtual memory, when I say page file, virtual memory, we're talking about the same thing, to another drive, it would give you better performance as well. So yeah, if you had another drive and it was also an SSD, that in theory would give you better performance. So yeah, I don't know what the numbers are as far as performance gain, but definitely you should get some performance gain by having your virtual memory on a solid state drive. So solid state drives have been a big game changer, of course, because now we have no spinning moving parts on them anymore. How many of you have solid state drives on your computers? Yeah, Lucia, Jacob, probably Daniel, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So yeah, and you probably noticed, maybe you don't remember anymore, but you probably, when you first put one in or got a computer with one, you probably noticed a big gain in your boot and load times over traditional hard drives. Yeah. Now, one of the things that does annoy me about solid state drives is when you fill them up, you kind of lose a bit of that snappiness. So if you go over maybe 60, 70% of the drive full, then you kind of, it seems to me that you're not quite as fast anymore. So yeah, one of the downsides of them, and this also happens with traditional hard drives as well, filling them completely up, you do lose performance.
Actually, that leads me to another question about actual like real hard drives. If you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
So if so like on a regular hard drive, because you're still, I mean, if you're making say you're making virtual memory, you want the speed, basically you want it to be fast. So I just remember that on a hard drive you can allocate memory to be on the, because it's around the mechanical, what it's reading off of is it's a circle, looks like a record or whatever. So you can read from the outside of it, or you can read from the inside of it, and depending on if you're on the outside or the inside of it, it's going faster in the middle, and it's going slower on the outside to do one rotation. So you can allocate memory. I'm sorry, it's going faster on the outside,
Right, on the
inside. So you can allocate memory on the outside of the hard drive to be faster. Like I just remember, like in video editing, you can allocate your videos to be on the outside of your, whatever that's called, the record. I'll just call it the record, and it'll access it faster. So can you allocate memory to the outside to make your virtual memory faster?
Yes, you can, and it's the outside tracks. You're starting with track 0, and as you go in, the track numbers go up. You can, but usually, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's kind of a little bit old school now. So you've obviously been in computers a while. That was traditionally something the reason you'd get something like Norton, the defrag and so forth for, because graphically they would show you that it's putting your, it's optimizing your drive by putting information within certain tracks, putting it together. As you said, putting certain information to the outside where it's faster. Of course, the ARM starts on the outside, so if you know how a hard drive works, it's a disk with kind of like an old record player with an arm that moves over it. So when it moves first to the outside of it. So it's going to get to that quicker, and it's also spinning. The data is moving past it quicker there as well. So yeah, there were third-party optimization programs, and whether Windows did that or not, I'm not sure. Now, of course, in solid-state drives, that no longer applies, right? Because we no longer have a disk, and so we can't run a defrag or any of those optimization tools, the same type of optimization tools on a solid-state drive. Does anybody know the name of the technology that's used on solid-state drives to optimize them? Okay, it's called TRIM. It's called TRIM technology, and it was introduced in Windows 7. So Windows 7 was the first operating system that had the ability to optimize your solid-state drive. I think there is an optimize button, but generally it does it itself. So we don't want to why do we not want to even try defragging a solid-state drive?
Is it because that it degrades it? Because I know that solid-state drives degrade. Like I would say faster, I think is the word, than a hard drive.
Yes, they do. In hard drives, we used to call that mean time before failure. They have a certain life on the solid state. So the more you use it, just like a lithium battery, the more you use it, the more it's wearing on it. So you don't want to do, and don't worry, they last a long time, but you don't want to do unnecessary things to use them. So since defragging doesn't really help them anyhow, running something unnecessary like a defrag on your solid state drive is only going to put wear on it that you don't want to be putting on it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so defrag the TRIM technology refers to solid states where it marks off areas that they're not being used anymore. But we don't defrag them because it's not the same thing. It's not a disk with tracks anymore where everything has to be put in a line to make things run faster. Okay, so that is virtual memory. Let's see, is there anything here we want to talk about? Oh, there's another way to get to the device manager. Oh, let's click on the device manager again. We can never ever look at the device manager enough if you're into computer hardware. So when you're adding devices to your, and we've already talked a bit about this, but if you're adding devices to your computer, you're adding hardware, you want to take a look in here to see that it's set up correctly. So if you see an exclamation point or a question mark or something like that, what is it telling you?
There's something wrong.
Yeah, there's something wrong. Well, not really something, well, sometimes something wrong. It's typically telling you that you need to put a driver in there. Now we can right click on here. Actually, not on that one apparently. One of the neat things we can do on here is we can right click on here and scan for hardware changes. So that will see if there are any changes. If you added an equipment and you want it to double, it hasn't detected it already, you can tell it to scan again and look for changes. But in here, let's see if I can find something. No, it's not giving me any information. But in here, if we, okay, here we go. This one needs a driver. So in here, we can update driver, disable, scan for changes. So if that device I'm on now, which is my Wi-Fi, if that didn't have the proper driver on it, I could right click on it like I'm doing here and say update driver. So then it would go out to Microsoft database and look for the driver for it. Now, if you're using something like a fancy video card, you probably don't want to depend on that because, you know, if you've got your $500 video card, right? You probably want to go to either the manufacturer of the video card, or you want to go to NVIDIA if it's a video card, or ATI if it's an ATI card, and look there to see, because they may even have newer drivers than what you get through telling to update here. Because when you update here, it's looking through the database at Microsoft rather than going to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer may have something even newer. So something to keep in mind. Usually for regular stuff like Wi-Fi cards and things like that, it's not a big deal. Generally, their drivers don't change too much. But for things like sound cards and video cards, generally, you know, that stuff is changing quite a bit because manufacturers of video cards, of course, want to keep up and keep compatible with the latest games and things like that. Anyway, that is our device manager. Keep that in mind. You wanna look here. You might want to look at the device manager on your computer just to see if you have any question marks. I would like to look here on computers to make sure everything has newer drivers or up-to-date drivers or so forth. Processors on here. Okay, and this is interesting. Why does it show the processor 4 times?
For
The quad core.
Yes, because it's a quad core processor. So a quad core is it's kind of a neat thing that we take for granted. It's essentially 4 CPUs in one. So when I install that CPU in the computer, it is effectively what in the old days would have been 4 different CPUs. So 4 cores giving you the equivalent of 4 CPUs. So this is the Intel Core i5. We talked about the Intel naming convention. i3, i5, i7 is the names they've stick to in the last 10 years or before or so. Before that, it used to be the Pentium. Okay, Ryan, you'll be back.
I was already away and then back.
Oh, it just popped up on me. Okay. All righty.
If you can,
You
if you don't mind me interjecting here real quick. If
What
you
was that?
have a processor with, let's say, hyperthreading, it'll show double the amount of cores because the theoretical cores. So, for instance, my Ryzen 5 3600 has technically 12 logical cores, even though it really only has 6, but it shows up in the device manager as 12.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
Mine shows 16 right now.
You showed 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of processor is it?
I have an i9 9900K.
Oh, wow. Boy, Daniel will be jealous of that.
What's your Twitch? I need to know so I can help build your following.
Yeah.
It's Wild Fox.
Okay.
Okay, I'll have to look
Well,
at it later.
well, I'll help your following out there. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. So yeah, that's a good point that there are also virtual cores as well. Boy, we use it, I have to apologize. I can't go without talking about something without using the word virtual, right? It used to be in the old days, it used to be active, ActiveX, Active Directory, Active this, Active that was an overused Microsoft term. But the other one is now virtual this, virtual that. So what the virtual cores are is there's, in the case of if you had 6 physical cores with hyperthreading, each physical core can split the instructions in 2, and parallel process them twice, I believe, in a virtual manner, if that makes sense. It's probably the best way I can explain it. How about you, Dan? You got a better way to explain that?
To explain what virtual cores?
Yeah, virtual cores.
Like the logical processors stuff?
Well, they're the virtual one. You have, when you run hyperthreading, let's say you have 6 cores, but you have 12 virtual cores.
Yeah, I don't know like how they do it, the technology. I just know that it basically means that they can do, like one processor does like a task, right?
Yeah.
One core does a task per core, and then the hyperthreading lets them do one more at the same time, basically. So they can like switch twice as fast with the time slicing and all that.
Yeah. And that started back in the Pentium days because the Pentiums were single. Well, there was a dual core Pentium, but it wasn't very popular. But the Pentiums were a single CPU, and then they introduced hyperthreading kind of before they started, for the most part, putting multiple cores in CPUs. So
is hyperthreading more of a software based then? Is it code or is it hardware?
Well, it's part of the hardware. It's part of the instruction set. Remember we talked about a CISC and a RISC?
But is it actual, like, is it code? Like, what I'm getting at is, could you hyperthread a CPU core from 20 years ago before
No,
the
it
technology?
actually had to be part of the instruction set created in the CPU. It's not something you could actually then download some firmware and add later on. It actually had to be written into the CPU, into its complex instruction set. And I can dig deeper into that. Obviously, I'm not giving you the full involved thing on that, but
it's more like a.
But you can't. But you can't just download something and update your CPU to hyperthreading. It had to be created as a hyperthreading CPU. And that was kind of the difference between like the i3, i5, i7, the i7s at one. I can't remember what they do now, but I think the difference at one time between i5 and i7, it was the i7 would include the hyperthreading into it, so you could double the cores by having the virtual cores. Was somebody going to say something? All right. So this one right here, this one in here is the i5 4690, and I believe the 4000 series. I believe that's what it means. It's a 5th generation Intel Core i5, and we're on the 9th and 10th generation ones now. What was the name of them again? You remember you told me Ice Lake or something like that? Coffee Lake? Coffee Lake was one, Ice Lake.
Comet Lake, Tiger Lake. There's all sorts of lakes.
Comet Lake. What was 10th gen?
There's a Coffee Lake.
Coffee
Yeah.
Lake is an older one, about 8th gen, yeah. The new ones are either Comet Lake or Tiger Lake. Yeah. So those are the code names that they give to the different generations. And of course, they use a different chipset. The latest high-end chipset on the Intel one, I believe, is a Z490. So when you buy the motherboard will often have the name of the chipset sometimes in there too. So each gen then uses a different chipset. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, so let me just go back into that. I'm going to open it up to any questions in a couple minutes. And for those of you that want to head to lunch, but let me just get back.
Brian, is your Windows a virtual machine right now?
Is there my Windows? No, this is not a virtual machine.
Oh.
I need to do that in some of the demos when we get into setting up how to install Windows in a virtual machine. If we're not sure how to, you guys that are getting into Windows don't know how to do that.
I do have a question about that, by the way.
Go ahead.
On the virtual machine in the ISO file on the Google Drive, is that something that we're already supposed to have installed? Because I don't. Now I wanted to go over that on how to actually install it. Or is that something that we're waiting on, or that I should already be doing?
Okay, so if we're doing the DOS virtual, and Jonathan has done that, I put a shared folder up there. I didn't really explain how to do it, but I think I mentioned a little bit. But if you want to run the DOS virtual, I put VMware 7 up there. If the VMware 7 doesn't work, then you can download the latest VMware player, which I think is 15, or I can put it up there. Jonathan, which version of VMware are you running?
I believe I'm running 12.
You're running 12, okay. Where did you get that from?
When I was at ITT Tech, they gave that one to me.
Okay, all right. So is that the full workstation or the VMware player?
Workstation.
Workstation, okay, all right. Yeah, the difference between workstation and player is that workstation will allow you to run multiple virtual machines at the same time. Player lets you run one virtual machine at a time. Mm-hmm. So let me see if I'm explaining what you need to know, Sean. If you want to do the DOS virtual machine, you install the VMware player. And let's see, I think I have it loaded in on the computer here. Hold on.
I just linked a video of you installing Windows 7 on VirtualBox, so I don't know if that's...
Okay, so I did do it. I did do it for VirtualBox.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if it opens up here. Okay, so this is the, I think I showed this. This is the VMware player, and we have to do this in DOS because I've already created a virtual machine in DOS and put it on the Google server. And to run it, you simply click on when you install VMware Player, you click on Open Virtual Machine. And then wherever you had copied, unfortunately, I don't have it on here at the moment, or at least where I know, you browse to that DOS virtual machine that you downloaded off the Google Drive. You just simply point to it and click Open, and it will add itself to the library over here. Then you can highlight it, hit the play button, and actually run the DOS virtual machine. So this is the way we're doing it in DOS. For Windows, we're following the way the book does it, and we're using a VirtualBox. So Daniel, you said you found a video that I created for that, right?
Yeah, I just linked it right here in the.
Okay. So you guys probably want to watch that video first, and then if you have questions at the next meeting, we can go over that. All right?
Yeah.
So Sean, does that help at all or not?
That does actually. And thank you, Daniel, too, by the way.
There's a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, just to cover it. So like the Windows 10 ISO, I can wait until next session or whatever. I just want to know, like, when I'm installing it, is it kind of like a so like I'll install, let's say, VMware VirtualBox. I'll go into it. Let's say I'm on this one.
You can do it in VMware. You can do it in VMware as well. You can do
Okay.
the.
I just want to know whether or not, because I barely have space on this computer. I need to like transfer a bunch of video files and stuff. So am I installing it on the virtual machine, or am I just running it from the virtual machine?
You're installing it, and the way it's going to work is when you create the virtual machine, it will ask you how big the virtual hard drive is. And normally it will default to 60 gig, but that's going to take 60 gig of your hard drive. So you want to shrink that down. Also, I think, Jonathan, you may be able to answer this for me. I think the VMware workstation you have lets you thin provision, is that right?
I am not sure, actually.
Okay. Okay, and thin provision means, let's say I create a 60 gig hard drive, but the files on it only take up 5 gig. Then the virtual file is only 5 gig, and it allows it to grow. Where if I thick provision it, which is normally the default way it's going to happen, if I say the virtual hard drive is 60 gig, it's going to create a 60 gig file. It's going to take up 60 gig on your physical hard drive. So when you go through and set that up, when you see the size of the virtual hard drive, I hope I'm not confusing anybody, I usually shrink that down to about 20 gig if I'm worried about space on my hard drive. Because for what we're doing, 20 gig should be enough room.
The DOS file, that's a VMDK file, right?
Yes, if it's VMware, it's VMDK, the extension. If it's VirtualBox, I believe it's a VDI, is that correct?
Yeah, I was going to mention that if anybody wants to use VirtualBox, there's a very like easy and neat way to use that VMDK in VirtualBox, and it'll work fine.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, like you know where you make a new machine, you allocate the RAM,
Right.
and then the next step is the is choosing a virtual hard drive, you know, dynamic, whatever. But there's one at the bottom. The bottom option says use an existing hard drive or disk, and that then you'll pick that VMDK file, and that's it. That's the whole. Then it'll install it normally as it would in VMware.
Okay, I'll have to make a video on that. I'll check that out. So let everybody know how that is. Okay, so so what Daniel is saying, if you're saying for the DOS virtual machine that's created, you can use it in VirtualBox. You don't have to just use it in VMware.
Yeah, any VMDK file you can put in there.
Okay, so yeah, a VMDK file is a virtual machine that's created using VMware. So it's the extension for VMware VMDK. So, and for the default one for VirtualBox is VDI. And if we just want to go one step further for Hyper-V, Daniel, what's the extension for Hyper-V?
Oh, I don't even, I still think I haven't even, well, I've used Hyper-V, but not like, yeah, I try to avoid it. Like, as much
Like
as
the
I can.
leg? Okay.
Yeah. but
Some people
that's-
don't. It's VHD, virtual hard drive. It's just the virtual hard drive. Okay, so if it's Hyper-V, it's a VHD. Okay, so we covered enough for today? As I said, I'm going to stay on till 12 just in case anybody jumps in. So, but if you don't have any questions, I'll let you be dismissed if you like, and we will be here again next Tuesday. So Jesus, I checking your test. I haven't finished with it, but Jesus did his DOS test. I didn't mention that before. It looked good. Submitted the screenshots of it, and I went through most of it, Jesus, and it looks good. And I'll finish checking it this afternoon and put in your grade into Canvas. So, so the rest of you, Lucia, you still here? Okay, you're still here. You went off screen. Sorry.
All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna head out. I'll see you guys Tuesday.
Okay, and you're still in Texas, or?
Yeah, I'm still in Texas. Hopefully, I don't know, tomorrow or something. I'll know, or this weekend or something.
Okay.
But yeah. All right. I'll see you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Later.
Is Giovanni still here, or did he? Giovanni disappeared. Okay. All righty. Jonathan, you're going to do the DOS test soon, is that right?
Yeah, I'm almost done with the sheet thing. Once I finish that off, I'm probably gonna ask for the test.
Okay. So yeah, just like, so Jesus, what do you think of the test?
It was very straightforward. I mean, once you do the sheet thing, you kind of just know the test pretty well.
Okay. All
So
right. I think I had one little mistake, one or two mistakes in the test that I think we need to clarify, right? There was a file that didn't show up.
Yeah.
All right. Apart from that, it's good.
Apart from that, it was great. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Jonathan, Sean, Jesus has done the test. He can vouch for that. There's no surprises on it. And Lucia, when you get into the exercises, that'll prep you for the DOS hands-on test. And so forth. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys.
Okay,
Tuesday.
Jonathan, we'll talk to you later. Mm-hmm. Lucia, did you want me to go over any more stuff in Canvas, or are you getting okay with that?
I think I figured it out.
Okay. All righty. And do you know where you can find your grades in it?
Yeah. I took one of the chapter tests yesterday, and then I was able to check the grade. And
yeah, and I think I mentioned it already. When you go into grades, do it search by module.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to put it in that order. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Jesus, I haven't put your grade in there for that yet, but like I said, I'll finish checking it. Got a busy afternoon, but hopefully I will find some time to finish up. But it looked good. It looked good.
Yeah.
Looked really good.
There's no rush. I'm not one of those students that's like, "What's my grade? Tell me now."
No, you did fine on it. I just wanted to confirm, double check a couple things on it, and you check that on my computer at school. So that's good. Lucia, you doing okay with everything?
Yeah. I'm really excited for this.
So tell us what equipment you're using for streaming. Using a capture card or anything like that, or?
Yeah, I have an HD60S. I do. I have a gaming PC.
Is that an Elgato or what?
Yeah, it's an Elgato.
Mm-hmm. And what days are you streaming?
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What times?
I usually start at 7 p.m.
Okay. All right. So we'll look for you. You got a good following yet, or?
I have about 800 something followers, but
That's good.
I took a year break, and I'm just getting back to it now. So.
Did you go to the Microsoft one, or that was strange that one died, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I tried it out for a little bit, but I think that was primarily for Xbox streamers. It
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny. People actually knew eventually down the line that Mixer is what it was called would eventually be bought out by Facebook because people have noticed like a lot of Facebook and Microsoft have been doing a lot of like back behind deals because they've also been investing in their like VR technology and whatnot and some of their other technologies that Facebook's going into.
Mm-hmm.
So people were kind of expecting it, and it's funny. A couple of bigger streamers signed a contract for
Right. What was it?
Mixer.
Shroud and Ninja?
Ninja. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it was for like 4 or 5 years. And they just like 8 months later, hey, bye everybody. Oh, we're back. Sorry. It was a
You know,
mix up,
that's
I
the
guess.
annoying thing with Microsoft, that they have a habit of getting something and dropping it, and Google kind of does the same thing.
Yeah, Google does that a lot. Like, does anyone even remember what happened to the Google Glass? Like, they showed it off at one conference, and then now it's like, oh, they made that? When did they make that? That looks dumb. And now they're working with like AR technology that doesn't look. It looks exactly like the Google Glass, but it doesn't look like it'll go anywhere or something.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that there is some kind of Google Glass kind of thing in the future.
I mean, yeah, the technology is like very interesting.
I would like to walk around with glasses that, you see things on it kind of like instead of a smartphone.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I don't know. I'm kind of biased because I just bought the VR headset recently.
Oh, okay, you did.
Yeah,
Which one? The Sony one or
The
the?
next thing I want to buy.
Is it the Sony one or is it who's the Facebook one?
It's the Facebook one. It's Oculus.
Oculus, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
It's Oculus, but it's a Lenovo off-brand. So that's something I did some more research on. It's actually
Is it that new wireless one? That new wireless one, or is it the one that's connected to the computer?
the wireless one's the Quest.
Quest.
This is the Rift S.
Okay, the Rift.
That's the one I want to get.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, it's cheap, and you know what? It's actually not that bad. I'm actually really happy with it. One of the complaints people were worried about was like there's no eye partitioning, so you can't customize the eye partitioning. But luckily, I don't have like.
You mean the IPD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So luckily,
yeah, I have FPV goggles where I have that same thing trying to get set the IPD.
Mm.
You know what FPV is, right?
Yeah.
For flying quadcopters and things like that.
I guess the other thing that made me want to get it is the fact that I don't have to set up base stations.
Mm-hmm.
So like my room's already pretty small, and so the fact that I don't have to like mount things on my wall is nice because I'm lazy.
Right. Yeah.
And it's less cords. That was the other main factor where this is just 2 cords, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's all. That's literally all I need.
So do you have sensors for hand movement, or do you use a joystick for that, or?
Yeah, no. Well, the sensors are just this. Are they just these 2?
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
So the amazing thing how this works is like I think someone's giving me the breakdown on it, where it's just like it detects where they are relative to like their gyroscopic sensors, and then they also have cameras on them that also detect. From what I've noticed, it's more reliant on the cameras because if they go behind me, it kind of gets a little weird, and also if I'm playing in the dark, which my sleep schedule is terrible, so I'm usually playing in the dark.
Yeah.
It doesn't detect it either at all or very poorly.
Oh, gotcha. So, what games are you playing through VR?
Well, I'm playing the big one, which is Half-Life Alyx, because everyone is pushing that one, and I'm having amazing fun with it. There are a couple of upsides and downsides to VR. The people are learning. You notice it as you progress towards like the games that first came out with VR and the more of the recent ones where they've innovated a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing thing about like the first beginnings of VR is that like they're a lot more innovative,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't care about like comfort and whatnot. And because of that, you learn some things that the later versions of VR learn more properly. Like for instance, 2-handed weapons like guns are very poorly like able to do in VR. Because,
right, I can imagine. Yeah.
And certain weapons like say a pistol, you wouldn't normally you would just think like, oh, it's a sort of like weird just aim and shoot, but you actually sort of learn how guns work in the how it work properly, where there's a reason why those sights are there, and if they're not aligned properly, it's kind of bad. So because of that, what other games have done down the line is either is usually just give you like a laser sight, or just or a hit marker, or they align the they program in a funny way where they align the sight. Sorry, it took so long for me to say that. They align the sight to sort of just lie to you and be like, that's not where actually it's coming out, but it's coming out.
Yeah, I could see that being a challenge. You're right. I could see that being a challenge for VR, doing the two-handed weapon or aiming. Yeah.
I also find it funny because my computer's a bit of a weird one. I was looking at it when we were looking at device cores, and I was like, wait a minute, do I also have 16 cores? And that was a weird experience to find out, because I was looking at
so the hyper-threading will show you double the physical cores. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I do, and because I was looking at my stuff through HWinfo, and seeing, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't realize.
Yeah, I've looked at my device manager before, and I've seen that. I always wondered what that was, so now I know.
So let's see. You're lighting your room for your stream. I see. What kind of lighting you doing?
I have nano leaves that are above the wall, but my camera doesn't pick it up. But
and what kind of camera are you using?
it's a Sony A50-100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a SLR? DSLR?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what that is. Yeah. And you're putting that into your Elgato, or?
No, that's actually in the Elgato Cam Link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that stuff is high. Did you buy it before the pandemic? Because that stuff is really hyped up in price right now.
Yeah, it is.
Some of it I did. I already had, but the Cam Link, when the pandemic hit, I really wanted it, and I set up alerts from all these websites to notify me when it came in stock. And about 2 months ago, it's like, oh, it's in stock, and I immediately went to buy it.
Right. Yeah. And in Twitch, do you do it through OBS, or do you do it through the Twitch software when you stream?
I do OBS Live.
Okay.
Which is the Stream Elements, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that sounds good. So you got a bit of a following, yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Do you have anybody stream with you, or do you have other people join?
I actually have a bunch of friends that stream. It's the Twitch community, most of my friends are in it, so.
Yeah, I found it interesting when I watch a Fortnite stream and the streamer had other people play against him in like that, I don't know what they call it, challenge mode or something. And he actually had them talking to them. I'm not sure how you set all that up in Twitch.
Oh,
They do it through Discord or what?
There are multiple ways to do that. Yeah, you can do it in Discord, but also partnered streamers have an ability to do I forgot what it's called, but it's basically like a squad stream, where they'll all have Twitch will set it up where all the channels are presented to the viewer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you can do something like that in Discord, right? I think.
Yeah. And if I'm just an affiliate, so if I wanted to do that, I would do it in Discord, and then we could all just capture that to my stream or whatever.
And I think another website, I think it's like an external one, I think it's called Multi-Twitch, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you both are sending your hours into High as well as me, right?
Yeah. I saw that email you had sent me, and I edited it yesterday to send it to him as well.
Yeah, I have to turn in yesterday's hours because I forgot because I was so tired doing the test.
I hasn't sent you an email and giving you a hard time about hours.
No. No, I'm usually like on top of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, otherwise you get emails from them. We do progress reports at the end of the month, so whoops, I guess they're coming up. So I have to go in and check everything. So what we'll be doing is I sent you, put in Canvas the flow chart at the beginning of each section. So what we will do at school is fill those in, and usually when students are at school, they're filling those in, and you'll see that there's a place to initial them off. But since we're distance, we're probably okay not doing that right now. Maybe at some point later on, we'll have you initial them and scan them in or something like that. I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
And yeah, we had a good group today. It was only a couple of people I was missing. Giovanni was on his phone, and I didn't really get to talk to him. I'll have to call him when we're done. So you've met some of the in the Zoom here. You've met some of the students who've been here a while. So a lot of them are in the network section. Some of them are in the A+, which is, before you started, were you familiar with some of the certifications like A+, Network Plus, Cisco, Microsoft, things like that?
I have an uncle that's I think he's A+ networking and Cisco certified.
Okay.
And he works for a local hospital.
Yeah.
Which is why I got this weird PC to begin with.
Yeah, you were telling me about your kind of like a server type thing. Yeah, the downside of servers is, of course, they're not going to have very good video, because when you're dealing with servers, you don't need the fancy video because you're crunching numbers and things like that. Even if you're using a gaming server, it's just feeding the information back. Even if you're using a Minecraft server, it's not going to show the graphics on it. It's just going to process the back end of it.
Luckily, it gets the job done. Like, luckily, most games that are optimized well don't bother me.
Okay.
I think there's only a couple games that I have to do some weird stuff to.
Have you been able to? Could you add a video card to it, or have you added one?
No, a video card's in it. It's my 1060 is in it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, no. It's funny. I think what's like the weirdest? Oh yeah, it's weird. I don't know why. There's probably some solution to it, but for some reason, whenever I boot up a game called Monster Hunter, it freaks out my firewall and takes up memory in the background slowly but surely. And sometimes I forget that it does that, and I have to turn off my firewall before I boot the game. And halfway through playing the game, I'm like, my computer's running really slow. I wonder why. Oh no! And then my entire computer crashes because there's too much. It's taking too much memory.
So when you say firewall, are you talking about the Windows firewall? Or are you talking?
Yes, the Windows Defender firewall.
The Defender firewall, and it's just starting to eat up memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, that's
that's annoying. Even though the thing's an exception, it's probably something to do with their like anti-cheat software, their Denuvo and whatnot. And that's
yeah, it could be that it's working your firewall too hard, maybe. Yeah.
Denuvo's a bit of an annoying. I forget what it's called. Like just anti-piracy.
Firewall often to see the same thing happens, or to actually prove that it's the firewall doing it, or?
I can't turn what off? I'm sorry.
Turn off your firewall. Yeah, you're talking about your Windows firewall, your Defender firewall, right?
Yeah, my Windows Defender firewall. Well, that's what I have to do in order for it to run properly, and it doesn't crash.
Oh, okay. So you have to turn off the firewall to run the game.
Yeah. Well, if I want to play for long periods of time, if I only play for like 30 minutes and then I get off, it's whatever.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the quirks you find of some software. Yeah. Yeah. So, You're right. You're right. It could be some anti-piracy, something where it's sending a lot of traffic through, and the firewall's having to inspect the packets a lot, and just
It's funny that it's anti-piracy software, and it's like people absolutely despise Denuvo.
mhm.
Like I think it's because Capcom uses the most, but Denuvo is known like multiple times it completely like in some cases severely impacts performance.
Mhm.
Like I think what was it called? I think it was Devil May Cry 5. Even high-end gaming PCs couldn't run it past above 60 for like the first couple of days because of like the way that Denuvo worked. So they had to like they replaced it, but when they were no, that's not what it was. It wasn't the fact that they did that. It was the fact that they released the game early without the Denuvo patch,
Oh,
and then
patch.
poorly implemented Denuvo in.
Oh, that gave it away. Yeah.
And then so people were like, "Oh, well, we don't have to pirate this now." And now you've just given everyone an inferior version that they have to deal with for a week.
That's funny. Yeah, and you can't do that to gamers, right? Gamers are the most techie people out there. It's like they, if you screw up and you patch Office wrong, nobody notices. But if you do that to a new game, yeah, you're gonna see it online. Everybody pointing out the flaws in it. Mm-hmm.
I know too much about gaming stuff, but it's just too fun and too wild of a like crazy art medium that isn't just a joy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Lucia, how do you promote your Twitch? Do you do it on Facebook?
I do it on Twitter. Twitter, yeah.
You do it on Twitter? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So it's just about 12. So unless we have any questions, we will talk to you. It's good seeing both of you. Okay. Good hanging out with you. Okay. And I'll have to check out Lucia on her Twitch stream.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that tonight or not? I can't.
No, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. I can't remember my Twitch name. I'll let you know. Okay. All righty. Okay. All right. We'll talk to everybody later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.